Call it June 9th. June 9th. Planning Commission meeting to order. Mr. Eddy, please call the roll. Mr. Planning Manager.
Mayor Olson.
Here.
Commissioner Hogan is absent. Commissioner Burkhardt has COVID. Commissioner Haley.
Here.
City Engineer Morrow.
Here.
Alderwoman Hanneman.
Here.
Commissioner Leone.
Here.
We have a quorum. Please rise during the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is approval of the regular meeting minutes of May 19th. Any additions or corrections?
Pass.
Leone and Hanneman. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is a public hearing, a special use application and site plan. The public hearing is on the special use for Woodfield Trail condominium development. Mr. Martinez, you have a meeting, hearing notice, please.
Oh, no. Here notices, planning manager
Mr. Eddy, you waved your hand. What do you?
for the presentation.
City of Franklin Planning Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, June 9, 2022 at 7 p.m. in the Common Council Chambers of Franklin City Hall, 9229 West Loomis Road, Franklin, Wisconsin, 53132, to take public comments regarding an application by Stephen R. Mills, President of Bear Development LLC, on property owned by Boomtown LLC, requesting approval of a special use to allow for the development of a condominium complex known as Woodfield Trail, consisting of 26 dwelling units arranged in 13 side-by-side duplex structures. This proposal is for property located at 12,000 West Loomis Road, zoned R8 Multiple Family Residence District, tax key number 891901100. This public hearing is being held pursuant to the requirements and standards of sections 15-3.0701, General Standard for Special Uses, 15-3.0702, Detailed Standards for Special Uses in Residential Districts, and 15-9.0103, Applications for Special Use Permit of the City of Franklin Unified Development Ordinance. A map showing the property effective, full legal description, the application, all supporting materials are available for review and may be obtained from the city clerk by way of request to the Department of City Development at Franklin City Hall, 9229 West Loomis Road, Franklin, Wisconsin, 53132, during normal business hours. A copy of the proposed special use resolution in draft form is available and open for inspection by the public in the office of the city clerk at Franklin City Hall, same address, during normal business hours. Public is invited to attend the public hearing and provide input. The proposed draft form resolution is subject to revisions following public hearing and the further consideration by the Planning Commission and the City of Franklin Common Council.
Appears we have a properly noticed public hearing. With that, we will ask the planning, what are you, senior planner?
Principal.
Principal planner, Mr. Martinez, for an explanation of the application, please.
Good evening. This is the Woodfield Trail condominium development, special use and site plan. Just a general location of the site. It's located between Ryan Road and Loomis. Even though the address is on Loomis Road, the access will be through Ryan Road because there is an access restriction through to the about in Loomis. This is a general view of the project, a brief description, 26 dwelling units distributed in 13 duplex structures. The project will also have a cul-de-sac street with sidewalks on both sides, street trees. There's also a landscape burn on the south side that is required by the UDO, stormwater management ponds. I would like to mention also that one of the constraints of the site of wetlands on both sides. That's why all the units are in this central portion. This is the landscape plan, as I mentioned, the landscape buffer on the south side and street trees on the proposed cul-de-sac street. Just a little bit of background of this project. So this was presented first as a concept review over a year ago. Then the applicant submitted a certified survey map because this site was divided into 3 different properties. So just to create this site that is 15 acres. Later, rezoning was submitted to remove the area that is on C1, that is basically the wetland that is on the west side of the development. Later, the applicant submitted a variance because, as I mentioned before, being this area between two wetlands, so the applicant submitted the variance to reduce the front setback from 25 feet to 20 feet, just to accommodate all the units in that narrow strip. Later was the natural resource special exception, because this site was previously filled as a result of a DOT project. So the NRC was to allow for after the fact impacts as a result of the field into the wetland buffer. So tonight is the special use and site plan. The special use because this is zone R8, and for two-family residential development, and special use is required by the UDO. The site plan is for the overall design of the project, setbacks, height, and the distribution of the structures, and potential future applications. The condominium plat, because this is proposed as a condominium, and a certified survey map will be required for the right-of-way dedication, because condominium plats does not allow for right-of-way dedication of the cul-de-sac street. Typically, the conservation easements and landscape buffer easement that are recommending as condition of approvals. Okay. This is the natural resource protection plan. There's no proposed impact to natural resources other than the impacts that were allowed with the natural resource special exception. Okay, and I would like to mention a site constraint that is described in the report, and that is why staff is recommending to table this item, because according to the report submitted by the applicant, there is this central area here that in the report, the consultant that prepared the report has recommended that, I will read it so can. So this property was a field site for a Wisconsin DOT project, and the report stated that with the exception of the field place within the central portion of the site, and the engineer fields tested by the consultant CGC were compacted satisfactorily and in general agreement with the project requirements. So that's one comment for the central area. And then later, the report stated that it should be recognized, however, that this report and its findings results is not intended to be and should not be used as a substitute for a subsurface exploration and foundation subgrade evaluation, which is required to determine the soil bearing pressure capacity of the engineered field soils and the underlying natural soils. So that's why staff recommended to table the project until the applicant submits the geotechnical report attesting that the underlying conditions are adequate for the proposed development. However, if the Plan Commission wishes to recommend approval, in the resolution, there is a condition of approval that states that the applicant may submit this information later for staff review.
Okay, there's an opportunity for the applicant to make a presentation. Shop, please give us your name and address. You've done this before.
Dan Shop, Bear Development, 4011 80th Street, Kenosha, Wisconsin. Couple of things that before we get into the conversation. In 20 years of doing this kind of work, I've never had a geotechnical report saying that the property is perfect for development, especially in Franklin. So I wanted to go over what work we've done on the site, because the matter is being suggested that we table this item, and I don't think it's appropriate. We filled this site under supervision of a geotechnical engineer, stripped the site down to subgrade. We tested it roof rolled it. We undercut any soft areas on the site. We filled this site in 8-inch lifts up to the present grade. At each lift, we tested the site for compaction. The comment in the report about the middle area being soft, we're talking about the top 8 inches of the site. If you can see the dates from the report, this was in a very wet season. I instructed our contractors to stop filling the site because there was no way to achieve that 95% compaction because of weather conditions. Site is going to be disturbed with grading. We have no issues with the soil on the site. So I'm asking for some consideration on for table. Also, the request for a CSM to dedicate additional right-of-way, I believe that can be done through a deed dedicating property to the city. I don't think there's a necessity to go through a CSM process to dedicate right-of-way. So we'd like to develop the site for a condominium. If you go back a couple slides and you look through the history of what we've done here since 2021, has all been to basically downzone this property. It's zoned R8 right now. The site supports 52 units. We're requesting permission to build 26 condominium units. Site as it's zoned right now, I'd like to go back in time. We've done all of these efforts to basically reduce the amount of units we can build on the site. It'd be much easier for us to do a multifamily development site on this project on this. So I'm asking for consideration from the commission to approve our site plan, special use permit, and not table it. If there's something that you guys want to put on as a contingency for further testing for the soils, I'd ask for a very exact scope of services, scope of what you guys want to see in this property. I guess I'm not understanding what we're being required.
That's it.
That's it.
Okay. The item has been properly introduced. With that, I will open the public hearing. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this matter? Anyone wishing to speak? Seeing no one in the audience and no one rising, I will close the public hearing on this matter. Questions from the commission? Commissioner Leone?
Staff, is there a precedent for the condition number 6 for other applications where we have moved forward on an application but required the applicant to come back and provide, whether it's geotechnical report or some other assurance?
Exactly at this case, no, but in other cases, we may require some additional information to be submitted after the approval.
And I guess, specifically about the soils and the, I use the right language here.
Yeah, no, not that exactly like this one, not that I'm aware of. Yeah.
Okay. And then to the applicant's question to staff, as specific as you can be, what are you looking for? If we were to advance with the application tonight, what is it that staff wants the applicant to come back with as part of? I mean, I see geotechnical report, but I don't know what further specifically we can provide to the applicant to make sure that they provide what we're looking for.
Right.
I think the applicant, you don't want it to be very vague. You want to know exactly what it is expected from you.
Yeah, if I'm going to engage a geotechnical engineer to go out and assess the site, talking a significant investment, which we feel we've already, there's more that the staff wants. I'd like to know exactly the scope of soils testing that you'd like to see, because we feel we've provided it already.
And if that's something that you can't answer tonight, then as part of the condition, could it be that to be defined specifically what staff is looking for?
I'm not geologist or geotechnical engineer. I'm not pretending to be one. It's just to follow the recommendation that is in the report that was submitted by the applicant.
This
So
report was, we produced this report. This wasn't asked of anyone. This was done by us. I did this out of safety of our property, right? And I guess what I'm saying is like, if it's a requirement of more testing, I'd like to know exactly what you want for testing. Because we feel like we've protected ourselves with this report that we've done on our own.
Let me jump in here.
Please.
Been doing this, well, Kevin Haley's been doing this forever, but I don't ever recall us requiring a geotechnical report on a residential development. I just don't. Okay. You may have, but I don't recall it. I can tell you that when I bought the lot for my house, there was no geotechnical report. There was a line from the developer that said, buyer accepts all responsibility for subsoils. And I can't help but think, I don't know what we're protecting here because it's their liability and their cause for correction. So that's my 2 cents on that. If they run into some bad soils, it's their building, they got to fix it. What do we care? But Alderwoman Hanneman and then the city engineer.
Thank you. And my questions were very much the same as Commissioner Leon's. I can't remember any that it's codified as a requirement as part of a special use. I mean, we didn't even do that for the Strauss, I don't believe, which was directly across the street. So I'm wondering why we're asking to require this, because I want to be sure that we're applying our standards equally. But the other question I have is, I'd like the engineer to weigh in. Have you reviewed, your staff reviewed the report? Are you comfortable with this? Is this something that you normally do?
Yeah, I was going to say, so we have a letter here at our desk when we got here tonight by CGC, so I'm glancing at it, reading it. Looking at page 3, the middle paragraph, it talks about, I'm going to try to paraphrase, he basically says the conditions were poor. And I used to be a soil testing technician once upon a day, and I do recall that it, a lot of times if you just let the soil dry out or other conditions, then it'll compact just fine. He doesn't say, at least I don't see it in this report, that the soils are quote unquote bad. Mm-hmm. He just says that you need to redo your efforts on it based on let it dry out, let it do some other things with it, with the soil. So, which is not atypical of soils. So, and again, it doesn't mean the soils were bad. It just at that time the moisture density was such that the proctor densities didn't come out the way they were expecting to. So, if indeed this is truly the top layer of the surface, although I don't know that it does say topsoil layer. Mm-hmm. I guess I'm not overly concerned with that because they're going to dig foundations that go deeper than that. This is more or less, if you will, the yards area. And it, best I can tell, the densities below grade were just fine. It's just that the top one, well, whenever they tried to do this test, is the way I interpret this, is that the conditions were such, maybe too wet, to whatever, that it just, you couldn't get the test to come up proctor.
Alderwoman Hanneman still has the floor.
Oh, I will yield, thanks.
Mr. Martinez.
yeah, just want to make a comment. So according to the UDO section 1570103, applications for site plan review, numeral G, soils data. The characteristic and type of soils related to contemplated specific uses, soil borings may be required by the city engineer, zoning administrator, and/or plan commission.
Commissioner Haley.
Thank you. Where do we start? Actually, I think this is a good project. It's a good attempt at infill. I think this is probably a good use for this property. The issue of the soils, though, greatly concerns me. And looking at the natural resource special exception plan, it's surrounded on both sides by very wet. And I'm intimately familiar with this property. It's wet. You took a very small piece of property sandwiched between two wetlands, and then unfortunately put a large stockpile on it. And that may be what actually led to all this problems. I personally am very concerned about the soils. You've heard me before on these issues. Other words, Franklin has lots and lots of these. I appreciate that they've gone ahead and done some looking at it. Unfortunately, I'd really love to read this report in detail and see what it's telling me, because I know something about soils. But it's scary to move forward. As the mayor said, when he bought his property, that responsibility was thrown on him. Think about the future residents of Franklin that'll live here, 26 families, and they start having water problems in their basement, their neighbors, whatever. This is a matter of doing due diligence, if you will, finding out exactly, are these areas good for it? Once the houses are built and there's wetland problems, there's water, there's nothing we can do about it. And then the alders and the mayors take calls forever. I think it's reasonable for the applicant to do detailed testing, assure that in fact the property is developable and won't have secondary problems that we won't know until after everything is built. The concept of discovering things while you're digging a basement and then fixing that, that's lunacy, if I might say. You don't build where you're not supposed to build. And I'm not saying we shouldn't build here. As I started out by saying, I think this could be a great project for Franklin. Do the science. Find out exactly what's wrong. I haven't had a chance to review this. I don't know if the information is in there. It's relatively simple. The site was compromised by the placement of that fill in there. Let's make sure that it's suitable for development. That's all I'm suggesting for. We're not trying to shut this project down. What we're trying to do is make sure that the soils can be dealt with. Once it's approved, it's approved. And you could spend the next 10 years trying to solve problems that you find on individual parcels. Do the tests. Let's find out. And until then, I don't see the need to move forward. We've moved forward. We've seen all the steps. We've known this project is coming. Do the geotechnical reports. Let us know for sure. Let the engineers who are trained and licensed to do this tell us that it's okay. That's beyond the purview of anyone here on this to say it's okay. Do the test.
Mr. City Engineer, then Commissioner Leon.
No, I appreciate what Commissioner Haley said about Franklin soils. It is, welcome to Franklin, home of the wetlands. I've said that many times before. Having said that, this report it's not critical of the Franklin soils. It's what was beneath. It says up to was compacted just fine. These are the soils from Hales Corners. These are over the fill that was brought in from the Hales Corners project. Again, it's that upper layer. The soils that were there, just the conditions weren't right for that to do it. So I do appreciate the Franklin soils concerns, but this isn't saying that the Franklin soils had the issue. It's the fill that was placed on top and just the very top layer.
So my question.
Sorry. Gotcha.
Same question to both the applicant and the city engineer, and builds off of Commissioner Haley's questions. In your opinion, is Appendix 2 the due diligence and the science and the testing for this project?
So, we own this property. We wouldn't endanger it. So what we did to fill this property, we knew it was low. to fill it, we get down to native soils, we test it, right? Strip the topsoil, there's whatever, 150 density tests across the site. Before we put a stitch of soil on the site to fill it, we made sure that the subgrade was in good condition. Every 8 inches we came up, did the same thing, tested the soil across. That's what that report says. CGC report says that we had density testing all the way up to the surface. When we got to the surface, we had weather conditions where these guys were fighting the soils on the last 8 inches of the fill. I told them to stop. Like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, we're not going to get 95% compaction on the last 8 inches. Forget about it. Leave it alone, topsoil it, because you know what? There's going to be a road, there's going to be yards, there's going to be foundations in it. So if the statement in that report is about the middle area not meeting compaction, I'd be the first one to be, I would put our property at risk if I said that was an issue. For me, that doesn't matter. It's the top 8 inches. So what matters is 4 feet below where we started filling. We tested that with scattering of tests. Certified soil engineer tested that, and we've got a documentation for it. So no, I'm completely satisfied with it. I would not be, this is property we own. We intended to develop it. We did every protection and testing that I've ever been involved with. I feel completely comfortable. So if there's more testing that needs to be done or is required of this commission, like a very detailed scope.
Thank you. And then, city engineer, are you comfortable with this to move forward with the project?
Sure. I was going to explain to you. So there are some laboratory compaction test graphs in the back. I used to do many of those with the old French curves. Basically, there is an optimum for every kind of soil. There is a magic optimum moisture content. And if you get too wet, you will never achieve the maximum compaction. There's like a maximum graph, and that's so what they graded on is the 95th percentile. When they say 95th% of the Proctor, these graphs are put together in the lab based on a variety of moisture contents that we graph these in the lab, and then again, if it's too wet, if it hadn't rained that day or the day before, it probably would have hit moisture compaction just like the rest of the site. But for whatever reason, and that makes perfect sense if they were fighting weather, sometimes you just got to walk away from the site because there is no way you can put enough mechanical effort. If you let it dry out, then it'll be, it can come right up or maybe even come up naturally. So I guess if I'm comfortable with it, if there's still a concern, I guess the recommendation would be to have those areas retested in that area at those same elevations and compare what it is. I mean, we had some rain this week, but if you let it dry out next week, it should be just fine.
The thing though is though, like during the course of construction, that 8 inches is going to be ripped out. So like testing it doesn't really, I mean,
Agreed.
Glenn, like we're going to be ripping a road through there or pads. I mean, that top 8 inches is going to be disturbed through the course of construction.
Agreed.
Well, that begs the question. We're going to require testing. What are we testing? Are we testing the footings and foundations? Or are we testing the 8 inches that the driveway is going to get put in?
And I would tell you that inspection would also be testing the footings, foundations. When those get dug and ready to put in, they do those tests to make sure that that's fine.
So interpreting, that test will be done once the hole is dug, right? Is that
Correct.
what you're saying?
Yep.
All right. Kevin?
Yes, soil moisture levels change. It makes analyzing them difficult. I'm trying to look forward. If we don't do the testing now, we find problems. And again, I'm concerned with the structures themselves, not the roads, not the parking lots. They can be built on anything. But without knowing what you're going to find, and the solution is, oh, well, when you find it, you fix it. Well, what if you can't? The reality is, this site is exposed to rain and high water levels and all of that. You can't dream around the concept that we get this perfect dryness and we can get the tests and they pass. I'm concerned that in the future, we'll have structures built on soils that aren't capable of supporting them properly. And all I'm asking for, it seems like you've had a lot of testing done, and it's unfortunate that I didn't have a chance to review all of this. I'd be looking for a statement from a licensed structural engineer saying, no problem, don't worry about it. It's not a problem in the future. I'm looking beyond the point in time where you've built this and moved on.
Can I just ask though if that's
By all means.
required for every development?
I don't think that that's relative.
Engineer is, I mean, is,
I'm sorry, I don't think that's relative as to what we've done before. We have reason to believe that there's troubled soils on this site, subjected to high water levels. We should have a comfort level with the fact that that's not going to be a problem for future development. That's all I'm asking for. We can all express an opinion. I'd like a licensed engineer to say that where each of these pads is proposed, we've looked at the test, we've done additional testing, and it's not going to be an issue. Once we approve it, it moves on. This will never be back. And engineering staff that will do what they can, but I don't believe that it's standard protocol to go in and do at-depth soil borings at the time of construction. You're supposed to have that before you even start designing buildings. So again, I'm supportive of this project. I still have concerns about what's happening at Ryan Road, but we should be able to rely on a licensed professional that looks at it and says, we've done enough tests to know that it's not going to be a problem, or it's all okay except for lots 1, 3, and 7. That's what I would like to know before approving this, because once it leaves this room, there's nothing that's going to be done with it. It's approved. So, and I'm not trying to slow this down or anything. It seems like a lot of the homework has been done. I'm asking for somebody to compile that in a meaningful way and put their license on the line and say, this shouldn't be a problem. Or it might be a problem, or it might only be a problem in spring when things are wet. We can't just say that we can't get good test results because it's wet. It's wet. That's the point I'm trying to make. Let's just assure ourselves before we go through with the development that it's a suitable place to build 26 units.
here's a couple of things. The report says it was wet until 8 inches, right? We met compaction intensity up to this last surface. That's where this comment that's highlighted in the report says that it didn't meet compaction, right? To the last 8 inches.
Excuse me, but the basements are going down 8 feet.
Yeah, and
Are we worried about 8
my
inches in the
my
middle?
report says the soils are compacted to a compaction at that level. So we're talking about the top 8 inches that's going to be ripped out.
We will disagree on this.
Okay.
I would like assurances. We're being asked to
Can we get
approve
a
this.
scope though? If there's going to be a requirement for us to do additional testing, additional geotechnical testing or soil testing, can I get a very fine, narrow scope of what you'd like to see?
I'd like to see that for each of the building pads.
Okay,
For
and is
clean
that-
units right there. I don't need to know about everything else. We know it's wet. I'm concerned about the structures and the people that live in them.
And I'm respectfully disagreeing with Commissioner Haley on some parts of this, because I do have the names of 2 professional engineers in this report. So I'm having a hard time understanding why this report isn't sufficient and which engineering company would be the preferred engineering company at that point, and what is the litmus test going to be? And if we're not requiring this of other builders and other projects, I'm comfortable with the CGC report and the city engineer in his assessment. that it seems to me it's just added unnecessary expense to do yet another report that would likely tell us about the same thing. But we have it here, in my opinion.
waiting for me. When did I arrive?
Let's not go across.
None of us had a chance to read it. None of us had a chance to read it.
The report that really tells you everything that needs to be told was submitted on early May to staff. This was the testing summary that was required by us as owner of the property to the contractor who wanted to fill on the site, submitted also to DOT. That was submitted on May 4th, regular,
Hold on.
right?
The construction testing services summary report by CGC, it's included in the packet. It's appendix number 2. What is not included are the additional exhibits that you sent me last week or Monday.
When I submitted this report in May, everything was good. And then when I got the planning report, it said, we're suggesting tabling this. That's when I dug into everything that we've done, and I've submitted that correspondence from the engineer. That included test bits, everything else. So I was prepared to talk about the site plan tonight and the special use. This whole soil discussion, to me, is beyond anything that was required of a special use or a site plan.
Okay, Mr. City Engineer, and then Commissioner Leon, and then let's move forward, please.
Yeah, so in theory, suppose our bad soils down deep, which the report says they're not, if they were bad soils down deep, they would find that out when they excavate for the foundations, and it's not uncommon for builders to over excavate and have to fill back until they get good soils. That's just how the building inspection process works. You know, it's, so the building inspector will go out, look at it, and you know, they got a little gadget they push in the side. I assume we do that too, just like everybody else, to figure out what the strength of the soils are. If it's too weak, then they say dig out some more and replace it with some good stuff. That's how that works. But again, it's not the foundations that's the quote unquote problem, and it's not really a problem because it's just a moisture issue. You see on this page, you've got 10% is the optimum moisture. You get too wet, that soil is going to not perform. If it gets too dry, it won't perform. There's like an optimum peak. And just at the date and time when that test was done, it would have concerned me if they would have kept on filling on top of that. That would have been a concern. But the fact that it's a surface that, you know, dries and thaws out as winter and summer comes and goes, that's not a concern to me anyway.
Commissioner Leon.
So I'll start by thanking the principal planner for clarifying that Appendix 2 was included in the packet that we received. And then city engineer actually addressed what I was going to ask. And it sounds like many of the concerns that Commissioner Haley has would be addressed during the inspection process, and whatever fill was needed to correct it before there are structures on there. So in my layman's opinion, I'm also comfortable, like the city engineer, with moving forward on this application and at a possibly striking condition 6 or replacing it with something if needed. But honestly, my opinion, it can move forward without condition 6 and nothing added.
Is there a motion to recommend approval of a resolution imposing conditions or restrictions for the approval of a special use condominium complex development upon use upon a property located at 12000 West Loomis Road?
Striking condition 6.
Is there such a motion?
Second.
Hanneman and Leon. We might as well go ahead and do a roll call.
We need discussion on the motion first.
We can, but I thought we did.
Okay.
Somebody wants to discuss? All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Eddy?
Commissioner Haley? Engineer Morrow?
Aye.
Alder Hanneman?
Aye.
Commissioner Leone?
Aye.
And the mayor votes to affect the outcome. Mayor votes aye. Motion carries. 4 ayes, 1 no. A couple absent and no abstentions. Next item is the site plan. Mr. Martinez.
No, staff does not have any objections to the site plan itself. So we are recommending, if the special use is recommended for approval, so we are also recommending approval for the site plan.
Questions from the commission? Commissioner Haley.
As I mentioned before, again, I think this is a good project. I'm concerned that we're moving beyond the soils, but that's for the future. Again, I think the site plan as well. I will restate my concerns that we've discussed previously with other projects. What happens at Ryan Road? This is a nice development, and I think it'll be a good thing for Franklin, and it's a great infill thing. But I've still never seen how we're going to resolve the fact that we've got 132 lots coming in the north, these 26, all merging on this small street, which the city engineer has acknowledged has circulation and safety issues. We're trying to squeeze a bike trail in there. So I'm not saying what you're doing here is wrong. I wish the heck I knew how we were going to deal with this. We've got 2 driveways that'll be offset in the prime morning and evening times. Going to be huge traffic. We had a lot of discussion with this on Cape Crossing. And at the time, we focused on that. But nobody was thinking about the additional 26 lots to the south, 150 feet off. So I can't react specifically to this because on your site, from an engineering perspective, it all looks fine. I'm concerned with how the city is going to deal with the safety, the traffic congestion issues on Ryan Road, because we're exacerbating it with this. Another 26 units, 132 across the street, and several other lots being developed in the area. And we talked about the traffic study that was done for the other one. Didn't take into account this one. I'm talking here and I don't know what the answer is, but I sure wish I knew how we were going to make Ryan Road function. Geometrically, the curbs, the gutter, the entrance to the street, it all works. The site plan is fine. I'm trying to figure out how this city is going to deal with the greater issues related to increasing the usage of that street. It's challenged. And again, I still haven't seen an answer as to how this whole trail network works. We're trying to push it through. We're doing this. We've just exacerbated it. When we approve this, there's just going to be the extra 50 cars a day coming and going on a street that can't handle it already. But I'm not going to repeat myself. I've made this point. So I don't know how we resolve that here and now. I'm concerned about it. Good development. What are we doing at the street? How is that going to function? We've seen proposals for trails, on-road, off-road. I'd really like to know how this is all going to fit out and how it's going to be safe. But I will.
Well, the man that's responsible, Mr. City Engineer.
I agree that there's a concern on Ryan Road for safety issues as far as pedestrians goes. And that's why the development across the street, they're putting a trail across the front. We're adding the 116th Street trail that we've got the CMAQ grant for and we're proceeding on. And this project, that's why we're dedicating additional right of way so we can have room to put a trail so we can extend as far as we can. The Common Council, actually Parks Commission next meeting, the Common Council the night after is going to be discussing a master plan for the Ryan Creek Trail that will basically help solve that issue, getting people through there. The traffic impact analysis did not say it's congested. It does talk about, has plenty of capacity. It's just the fact that people cutting through tend to go fast. And I don't know how you stop them other than with a barricade and an AR whatever kind of gun out there to stop them. People just don't care that they're speeding for whatever reason. Yeah, we'll send Commissioner Leon out. So, what I'm saying is I don't think this does make it worse. We were adding more cars but it's not a congestion problem. It's the fact that people are cutting through going too quick. So whether it's 26 units or 133 units or 2 units, the fact is in fact, I guess one could argue with the more people out there, it would actually make it safer because people have to watch because something could be going on. I'm not going to go that far, but that's probably a valid argument to make that. So it's not the fact that we're adding more traffic to Ryan Road. It's the fact that people are cutting through Ryan Road, just don't care how fast they're going. And I don't know what to do about that. So.
Commissioner Leon.
So in regards to safety, and I do remember this from previous application unrelated to this that Commissioner Haley was alluding to, but law enforcement, right, short of the AR reference in there, which I know was said in jest. But, you know, it's a law enforcement issue. And as I remember on that application, the police department did not have concerns that were not addressed, correct? And, you know, I think that applies to this application as well, since it's in the same location. That speed issue that city engineer referred to is something that is mitigated, if you will, through law enforcement efforts and signage, that sort of thing. So I guess, you know, there's an acceptable level of risk, if you will, with any of these applications, and I believe that it can be addressed.
And I personally am looking forward to the solution because it happens on all, how many 100 miles do we got? 176 miles of roadway. And you live on the king of the speedways, 116th Street, especially after church.
Doesn't help our problem here.
Right. Alderwoman Hanman.
I just have an incidental comment. And it just occurred to me, but do we not already have a Woodfield Court in Franklin? So we might want to look at another name. Woodfield Trail might work. You know, but as I'm looking on the plans, it's, yeah, I like, wait, I'm pretty sure we've got a Woodfield Court.
I'm
Yeah.
really striking out on naming streets.
Yeah. Do you want me to give you a name?
I had to look up what bergamot.
It's not a real word.
It is.
Bergamot.
Oh, not, yes, you're correct.
Species.
So, yeah, just call it Woodfield Trail then.
Why don't we call this one? Okay. All right, let's give this a shot. Is there a motion to adopt a resolution approving a site plan for the development of a condominium complex with associated cul-de-sac, street construction, sidewalks, landscaping, stormwater management, and public water and sewer service at approximately 12000 West Loomis Road? Hanneman and Leon. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Is there a motion to adjourn? Leon and Haley. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned.
Did we get the special use?
Yeah. With no conditions.